Hello, Dharma Circle, and welcome to my Wednesday live here in the Dharma Circle Facebook group. So glad to see you today. This is one of my favorite topics and certainly very needed and necessary, um, particularly if you are a healer, and most of us in this group are healing and working with clients. This is going to be one of the most important reminders for your work, for your offerings, the way that you work with clients, and understanding a deeper level of why. Why is someone coming to me with this challenge? Why am I working with this specific challenge? What does it actually mean? And your ancestors and your ancestral team of support are absolutely vital for your healing work as well as your own dharmic path. So there is no dharma without the ancestors. This is one of the most overlooked pieces of the dharmic path. And when someone comes to me curious, wanting to clarify their path and their purpose, they want to trust their gifts and their wisdom. They want to have a meaningful, nourishing offering, sharing their gifts and wisdom in this world. The number one thing that is always in the way is the disconnection with the ancestors. So, from a Vedic perspective, and this is in fact reiterated throughout many indigenous wisdom and nature based wisdom throughout time, the connection with lineage, the connection with ancestral guidance, the way in which our wisdom, our gifts are passed to us. And I think of this in epigenetic terms, in fact. It's like what is actually passed on a embodied level through the lineage. And epigenetically, we know that it's very much about what's turned on and what's turned off. So think of your dharmic gifts as, in many ways, they're living in your body, but these are gifts that haven't been turned on fully by the lineage, or they may be laying dormant in the body. They're here. There's a way to connect with them, but they just haven't been fed. They haven't been nurtured. A relationship hasn't been cultivated with these gifts. There's a guidance and insight is lacking. So the ancestors inform your gifts. They actually hand you your gifts on a very embodied level, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So without the ancestors, there is no dharma. And again, traditionally, this is the absolute deepest gratitude, in fact, is that the ancestors are supporting us in our dharmic path and in the purpose of our soul. And what I share, and I learned this from the Dagara tradition, and Sabonfu Somé, who is very influential in my work. But the understanding from the Dagara tradition is that we're actually hired by the ancestors, so that many of us are contract workers hired by the ancestors to restore Dharma in the lineage. And other indigenous wisdom supports this and shares very similar insights. I believe it's the Hopi tradition that says that it takes 7 ancestors for a soul to be invited and allowed to come into this world. And so again, another reminder that the ancestors are part of our welcoming. They're the encouragement, the support, the why behind what we're doing here in this body, on this planet, at this time. And the clients that I work with are always contract workers. So that's something to just ask yourself. Do you notice that you are different than the rest of your family? Are you a cycle breaker? Do you go against what the family system, the tribe of origin, um, is is sharing? You know, do you feel different in some way? Do your gifts and your wisdom feel different? And these are all reminders that the ancestors have sent you as a contract worker to restore what has been lost in the lineage. And the difference and the differences are very key. If everything was going fine and there was no adharma in the lineage, then you wouldn't need to be here. But the ancestors know that some restoring of what has been lost needs to happen, and that means that it needs to be different. It's going to have to be different medicine in order to restore what's been lost. So that's a key reminder. If you are a contract worker, you're going to be very different, and that's a good thing. And that needs to be embraced and encouraged. And it takes a lot of self trust and self awareness to be able to do that. So there is no Dharma without the ancestors. And from a Vedic perspective, the karma that we're working with and the karma that I'm looking at in a Jyotish chart, which is literally the karma of the body, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. That's what the map of your body is telling me. And your Jyotish chart is literally just a map of your bodies. And we can see in the Jyotish chart, you know, the karmas that are present. This includes grief work, trauma, gifts, you know, embodied wisdom, past life, and what you're here working with in this lifetime. From a Vedic perspective, 25% of your karmas come from mother and mother's lineage. 25% of your karmas come from father and father's lineage. 25% of your karma comes from your soul and its previous incarnations. And 25% of your karma comes from the 9-month gestation period and the birthing process itself. So that's actually 75% of your karma that is being influenced directly by the ancestors, by your lineage, mother and father. And then the birth process itself and the 9-month gestation period is very much influenced by that as well. What's happening in mother's body? How is father influencing this experience for the mother? All of this plays a role in your birthing and what your karmas are in this lifetime to transform, grow, and awaken through. So we have to honor how much of the work that we're doing here in this lifetime is influenced directly by the ancestors. And that also means that whatever you're here working through and transforming on an ancestral level and a personal soul level, this is the dharmic path. And it becomes the dharmic offering as well. The 12th house of your Jyotish chart is specifically about the ancestors. So you can look to your 12th house in your Jyotish chart and really deepen your understanding. What is the karma here with my ancestors? What have they handed me? What am I working with? Now, some people that I work with are very specifically here for ancestral work. And there's always an indication in the 12th house that there is something very specific with the ancestors. Now, all of us are here to work through ancestral karma. We're a living expression of healing and transforming our ancestral lineage grief work and the gifts that we've been handed. But the 12th house is going to show you very specifically what the work is with your ancestors, maybe some important wisdom or insights or resources, karmas, grief work, trauma. We often see it sitting in the 12th house. And for some people, it's a very specific path of transforming the lineage issues. So, as strengthening the relationship with the ancestors is very vital. And one of the reasons I'm sharing this class today is that we're in the middle of the sacred Vedic celebration of Pitra Paksha. And this always comes before the Maha Navaratri celebration in the fall. And Navaratri is a Vedic celebration that's very dear to my heart and has been highly influential in my path. And we'll talk more about Navaratri next week as it begins. Pitra Paksha will wind down and close on the 25th of September with the new moon, and Navaratri begins 9 days and 9 nights celebrating the divine feminine and the battle between Durga and Mahishasura, which ends on the 10th day with Victory Day Vijayadashmi. So in this sacred gap leading up to Navaratri, the reminder here is that the veil is very thin, that the ability to touch the spirit world, the sacred realms, it's easier to do at this very powerful time. This is a junction point in the seasons, and it's a remarkable time to deepen our connection with the ancestors. And so exploring ways that that can look is really important, not only for this healing and transformation with your lineage, but also for your dharma and your dharmic path. That in fact, deepening the relationship and the support from the ancestors is a key component of strengthening your dharma, your dharmic offerings, trust in your offerings as well. So one of the things that I invite you to consider at this time is, what is my relationship with the ancestors? How am I building or strengthening this relationship with them? What are the steps I'm taking to support this relationship with my ancestral team of support? And that can look a lot of different ways. If you don't already have an ancestor altar, this is a really good time to create one. And the feeding of your ancestors at the altar is really powerful as well, that we're offering nourishment and giving our gratitude to the ancestors. The other part of this relationship with the ancestors that is overlooked is the grief work involved. Most people tend to think of ancestral work as only giving the gratitude, the thanks, the praises, but in fact, so much of what the ancestors want to be fed with is the grief, the undigested grief living in your body and the ancestral body. So my question for you is, when was the last time you offered your grief and purged your grief and directed it towards the ancestors, asking them to take this grief, to eat it like food? And they really are grateful for the grief that is released and purged and offered, because this is what's clogging the pipes. It's clogging the channels of your Dharma and your dharmic path. And without transforming this grief, moving it, expressing it, letting it move, then it's not moving, and it stays stuck, clogged in the channels. And this is one of the reasons why you may not be clear, you may not trust yourself, you're disembodied, you're disconnected from your lineage, gifts, and wisdom. It's undigested grief clogging the channels. And I'll be honest, this is the work that no one wants to do. And it's really interesting when I hear people share, that they have a relationship with their ancestors, but it's all positive and gratitude, and I would never want to share my negativity with them. Well, in fact, that's probably the very thing that needs to shift, is the grief work component that must be done. And this is a vital piece of the dharmic path. If you're not doing your grief work, you're not really in right relationship with your dharma. Dharma requires a very large amount of transformation of undigested emotion, transforming losses, disappointments, pain, death, trauma, all of it, so that we can be in right relationship with our gifts and our wisdom. And in fact, the adharma, that which goes against dharma, adharma, is always connected to undigested grief on some level. So if you are unclear, if you are in states of continuous crisis or chaos, upheaval, if you still don't trust your offerings, your gifts, if you're feeling malnourished, if you're not resourced well enough, or generating, creating money in a way that feels good to you, if your offerings are not fully nourishing you, maybe they're feeling like it's a depletion or unsatisfactory on some level. These are signs of adharma. Adharma also shows up physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So it might sound like mistrust or inner criticism or some doubt on some level. Physically, there might be body issues, dis-ease in the body. Emotionally, so overwhelmed with emotion, grief, big feelings that it's hard to even land in contentment or ease. And spiritually, there can also be undigested grief. Often I meet clients that have had huge betrayals by spirit, huge betrayals with, the universe. And it's really hard to trust spirit. These are all signs of adharma, and they impact our ability to really be in alignment with dharma, to feel content, satisfied, safe, energized, nourished by our gifts and our wisdom. And these are indications that there is undigested grief living in the body, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. This could also be the ancestral body. The ancestral body that is both your lineage and those who have impacted your body through lineage, how you were created, literally. But we also have a complete ancestral body that all of us are connected to. So let me share how the ancestral support team can look, and the different ways that your ancestral team can support you, and also to be really clear that we're working with the well ancestors. So when we're talking about ancestral guidance and support, this is very specifically about working with the well ancestors. I do not work with the unwell ancestors. That's not my realm. There are some who do, and yet we all need the trustworthy, safe holding and support from the well ancestors. So I'm inviting you to be very clear and specific with who you're calling in, who you're inviting into your team of support, and who you're working with. If you're having trouble connecting with an ancestor or a part of your lineage, that is a good indication there's undigested grief in the ancestral body, and it needs to be honored, acknowledged, and purged. So pay attention to those places where, I feel like I can't connect with this person, or I don't even want to connect with this person. Okay? So that could be an indication that there is a lot of undigested grief. And with well ancestors, we can do that work with them. With an unwell ancestor, we're going to need a lot more help, and it's going to need to be very specific help. And it may not even be something that you want to do in this lifetime, and you need to be very firm and clear in that. So I'm not working with the unwell ancestors, and I often send those unwell spirits to my guru, and you may have a lineage master that you would send them to as well. But be very clear, boundaries are really important with the spirit world as well. So if you have leaky boundaries in the human realms, that's often an indication you have leaky boundaries in the spirit realms as well. And I'm going to invite you to tone that up, clarify it, and be really clear in who and what you are connecting with, why you are connecting with them. The intention here is for healing, growth, transformation, and having support and holding for your path and your purpose. And the reminder is that the ancestors want you to live your Dharma, to restore the lineage, to eradicate adharma, and to bring the lineage back into balance and harmony with the original intentions, offerings, and gifts that your lineage is here to share. And that's, as a contract worker, that's you. You're part of that intention. And it's important to be clear in that. And you need the ancestors to guide you in this process. So this is very different than a career path. And I see this all the time. I even see this with Dharma coaches and those that do dharmic work. Be really clear that a career path is not the same thing as a dharmic path. Your dharmic offering is an extension of your soul purpose, why the ancestors brought you here, why you are here in the first place, to restore Dharma in the lineage, and at the same time to evolve as a soul in this sacred realm called Earth. So you are here for a very specific reason, and all of us have Dharma, have a soul purpose. Some of us are very clearly here to commit to this purpose only, and this is our main reason for being alive in this body at this time. We have a contract with the ancestors. We're here to fulfill this mission, to grow and evolve and awaken in this process. And that is not a career path. And I hear these words used interchangeably, and it drives me absolutely crazy because it's such a mistake of the intellect, pragya parad. These are not the same things. They are not the same path. They should not be used interchangeably, because a career path is just any old offering. You might be using some of your gifts, some of your tools that you've picked up along the way, but it in no way, shape, or form implies that your soul is evolving and growing through your Dharma, the purpose of your soul. And the dharmic path and a dharmic offering, so creating a business or an offering, using your gifts and wisdom, sharing your gifts and wisdom. Of course, many of these are lineage gifts. That is a very specific intention for evolution of your soul. And it is the most important job in this lifetime. Career is not something that that has a soul or spiritual intention behind it. So don't mistake the two. You can't get fired from your Dharma. There's no plan B. Once you open the doors to the purpose of your soul, there's no turning back, which is why, the soul knows this. And if you're terrified to step into your dharmic work and your offerings, it's likely because the soul knows that once you open these doors, you can't close them. There's no turning back. Unlike a career path, you can jump from career to career. You could get a new job. You could find a new way to share and make money. And the dharmic path is very different. It has completely different meaning and intention. And in that way, it is entirely sacred. And from the Jyotish chart, we can tell, are you a soul that is here for this purpose of Dharma? And is this why you are so unsatisfied in life right now? That you've been walking a career path and you've been trying to make it a dharmic path, and it's not. They're not the same thing. And this is where I often meet clients. They're struggling. They're straddling these two concepts, trying to make a career path a dharmic path, and wondering why they are dissatisfied, discontent, not feeling nourished enough. And we have to realign and reorganize and restructure around the nourishment of your body and soul so that the offering is a reflection of body and soul. That is how you create more nourishment with your dharmic offerings. And there's also, very clear indications in the Jyotish chart. We can see, can you make money from your Dharma, from your dharmic offerings? It's considered highly auspicious when a soul can be resourced, create artha, wealth, through Dharma, through the wisdom and the gifts of the soul. And the reason why this is considered so auspicious is that then there's no split, that there's integration and alignment. I have one purpose, and I can be fully nourished with this purpose, with this sharing of my gifts, my soul gifts and my wisdom, restoring my lineage, gifts and wisdom. There's no conflict. And some of you are in conflict right now. And there's a question of, can I really make money? Can I really be safe, supported, well-fed in my life, sharing my gifts and my wisdom, living from the purpose of my soul, be seen and heard and acknowledged in these gifts? And I want to invite you to, first of all, set the intention. If this is your true intention, ask the ancestors to support you in this. Ask them to guide you in this intention. And to use this sacred time of Pitra Paksha to strengthen this connection with your ancestors, with this connection to Dharma, nourishing body and soul, sharing your gifts and wisdom, and being well fed in the process. As I like to say, ask your ancestors for a raise. Some of you need to ask for a raise. Been working way too hard for too little pay. So ask your ancestors to help you with this. If you are ready for more ancestral resources, guidance, and support, if you are ready for resources and tools to support you in your grief work so that you can clarify your dharmic offering and have a very clear step-by-step process for creating the vertebrae of your dharmic offering and lay the foundation for your six-figure dharmic business. Type success below this video in the comments below. Type success. I will follow up with you and share more about my 6-module self-paced process. This is my Dharma Mastery Formula Foundations. It's a wonderful process for really getting the support, the foundation in place for your body and your business, and using the wisdom of your ancestors and your lineage and your grief work and this whole journey you've been on to create a very solid structure for your 6-figure offering. Yes, you can make money sharing your dharmic gifts and wisdom. And this is the reciprocity that you are actually here to create. And this is what the ancestors want for you. They want this for the lineage. And I invite you to really let that sink in. Consider how this is the healing for your lineage. No more struggle, no more survival, no more living from trauma. Being so full of undigested grief that you don't have space for the joy and the nourishment. This is what the ancestors sent you here to heal and transform, not only for your own soul, the benefit of your own soul, but for the benefit of your entire lineage. This is the beauty of your dharmic offering. As you share your gifts and wisdom, you transform, digest, heal, and grow through these lineage issues and create an entirely different paradigm, an entirely different story for yourself and your lineage. Comment success below if you want my 6 steps for Dharma Mastery Formula Foundations, and I'll share more details with you about these 6 modules, what we do in this process, and how you too can lay the foundation for your spiritual and material success and strengthen this relationship with your ancestors, your grief work, and your nourishing dharmic offering in the process. I'll look forward to meeting you very soon in session and sharing these steps with you. Again, type success in the comments for more information about my Dharma Mastery Formula and the foundational process that gives you all these insights and tools. Every Wednesday, I come into the Dharma Circle Facebook group and I share a simple class like this with resources and tools to support you in your dharmic path, with your dharmic offerings, your body, and your business. And I will see you next week with another juicy topic, and I'll look forward to seeing you then. Bye, everyone. Happy Pitra Paksha.